Hey, Eva Andrea here, and a quick note to personally invite you to come and check out my writing circle. Over the years, my work has organically grown into a blooming community of like-hearted souls who, like you, are on a journey of discovering their writing magic. Visit eva-andrea.com and you find the door in the menu. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to Write Your Light, a podcast to explore and activate our soulful writer within. I'm so delighted that you are here with me. Thank you for listening to your calling. Welcome back to Write Your Light. I am super excited for this episode where I have a dear friend that is Søren Hauge from Denmark with us. Søren is a highly respected and beloved, I would say, spiritual teacher, author, soulflow therapist, and life explorer. And I must say, I really sit here with this feeling of that today we will sit at the feet of a master. I'm almost feeling like I should wear a tie, because Søren is a highly respected teacher, and his body of work has been a lighthouse in Denmark and internationally for many decades. I don't know many that is so profoundly wise and has such a deep spiritual knowledge like Søren. And he has evolved from being a leader within the theosophical movement to creating his own soul flow therapy and wild heart teachings. And hold on now, because why is Søren here with us today? He has written 26 books. Yes, I said it right. 26 books, profound books. And, that is so wild. And I can't wait to dive in with you, Søren, and hear more about that journey. But first of all, I want to say there's something I really cherish about Søren. I remember meeting you, Søren, many years ago in a seminar, talking to you, hearing you from stage. And there's something about how you not only are so wise and know so much, but you embody the spirituality. You embody it and integrate it with love and compassion and a real natural humility, I would say, and lots of humor. And that is so lovely. It gives such a depth and also lightness to you as a teacher. So thank you so much for being with us today in Write Your Light. How are you feeling?
You're so welcome, Eva. And I'm feeling full of wonder because it's my first conversation ever about my authorship, really. And it's strange because, oh yes, I have to put things into perspective now because being an author is so natural for me. It's like breathing in a way. So suddenly to step back and look at it and just preparing for right now has been uh, magical, really, and full of gratitude also because it's something very dear to my heart.
Mm,
It
I love,
really is.
I love to hear that. Wow, so fantastic. And I gotta say, before we dive into everything, congratulations, because you just got your new latest book from the press. Can we see it? Do you have it here?
Absolutely. I'm sorry to say it's in Danish, but here it is. It is The Star Maker, William Heinesen, the Faroese artist and author, the greatest of them all from the Faroe Islands. And yes, we can certainly return to this book, but
Oh,
it's out of the ordinary in my authorship, really.
wow. It's so exciting, and it must be such a beautiful experience to sit with a new book. It always is. I guess that never ceased to be fantastic to get a new book in the post.
I'm sure you know this yourself. To me, it's like nurturing something similar to having a child. I'm a man. I cannot have a child, but And I don't want to make it naive to put it like that, but I personally nurture all my books from the very early sparks to the finishing, and everything in the process is of my interest. And that's perhaps one of the things that really means something to me. Some authors, they just write some words and they give it to other people, and then finally they receive their own book, and okay, that's the front cover, okay, that's the paper, and but to me, I go all the way with all the details very carefully, because it is like creating something deeply precious, and it has to go out in the world with much heart and love, and that's why all the details are very
Mhm.
important to me.
This is sweet music to my ears, and I am the same way, even down to the fonts I'm using. Everything matters.
Yes, the fonts,
Everything.
absolutely.
Fonts are different. Yeah.
Very, it's like individuals.
Mhm. Yes. Wow. This is so fascinating to me. And I would love us to maybe start from the beginning. When do you feel you started writing your light? What was your first kind of meeting with writing your light?
That's a very good question. Um, because my first book was in 1990, 35 years back, and it was about the Rosicrucian, and it was a very learned book, a small one but dense. But I was really doing my best to promote an understanding of people in the Renaissance, promoting spirituality undercover. And in a way, I was honoring the light of great people in the past, but that was the beginning of my book writing. But when you put the question, how do you, I mean, how did I open up to the light process in writing? We have to go much further into later years, because my first books was really about being loyal to the great teachers, um, promoting as an ambassador what other people had done. And I've loved doing that, because I think it's very important to be humble, to recognize who are you standing upon, and why are you able to do what you do today. But there came a change, and actually it was as late as 2012. I had written quite a few books at that point, but I felt this deep urge to be loyal to myself in a new way, and it came out as the Danish book, The Journey of Fire. And this book, The Journey of Fire, it it brings out a perspective that we are beings of fire. And then I looked into it from 7 different angles. And in a way, I took off from a kind of typology that I had developed with my close and dear friend Kenneth Sørensen. And it was the 7 types, as we sometimes called it. And then I thought, I need to write a book not about 7 types, but 7 forms of fire within us. And the 7 forms of fire that I finally wrote about um, was, and I mentioned them in their proper names, the fire of life, the fire of the heart, the fire of the mind, the fire of peace, the fire of awareness, the fire of joy, and the fire of creation.
Mm.
So, in this way, I wrote the book mostly during a vacation on the island Samsø in Denmark, and I clearly remember today how I was sitting under the fir trees, listening to the winds in the fir trees, and that became a very important part of the whole writing because I was in nature and to sit in nature, that was a deep eye opener for me. So the language became much more free, and I was kind of improvising with a lightness. So what could have been a kind of, textbook in seven types, it became a playful journey of seven angles into your being.
Mm.
So in that way, that was really the beginning. And by the way, you know about the next one because the next one following very closely to this was a book because
Yes.
The
I,
Angel in You, it came in the same year, and that was the first book I wrote within 2 weeks. I just sat down and I leaned back and then whew, suddenly I experienced that this was so incredibly effortless. And the book emerged, and I thought, whoa, and there was a lot of circumstances around the book, but to put it shortly, it almost seems a little bit too easy to say it wrote itself because
uh-huh.
that's something that could give the impression that you don't have to develop skills. So I would say the skills I had developed since 1990
Mm.
became the platform for me to lean back into an effortless flow of um, being within me and let something emerge. And when I looked at it, it had a structure. So it was not, just wild in all
Mm.
directions. It had a structure, but it was not intellectually planned.
Mhm.
It was spontaneously ignited. So these two books, The Journey of Fire and The Angel in You, in 2012, they became a major turning point in my
Mm.
writing.
I love that, Søren. Thank you for sharing that. And I remember you. I think you gave me the Angel Inside. I got that book, and that was, I think, my first meeting with your writing, and I could really feel the lightness in it, and it was like a
Hmm.
living, vibrating book. And since I've also read several of your other books, and always loved your writing, um, but it's very interesting to hear that shift from yeah, I can really hear what you're saying, and and I also love that you honor that you had become an instrument. You had fine-tuned your instrument, so you were ready to channel in such a high level as you could at this point, right?
Yes, you could say so.
Mm,
Yes, I remember Kenneth, he said, well, this is transmission. This is a flow book. And then I thought, I never had that thought. It was a transmission. And, sometimes when you use words like this, channeling, transmission, flow, and so on, there, I have to say honestly, sometimes I feel there is a hype in it.
mm,
You are putting yourself a little bit on a pedestal. I'm just a channel, but what a channel am I? So, at, as if I'm connecting with the great archangels and I'm just saying what they tell me and so on. And I don't want to be critical, but I want to emphasize that my great teacher, my great and beloved teacher and friend David Spangler, he has always said, to my great confirmation that your ultimate journey here is to be you and not to just be a, a messenger for others. It is ultimately to be you because you are the gift to the world. You are not just passing on something that great teachers have to say, and you are the humble channel. This is to diminish yourself. And it's not about importance. It's simply about this fact that you and I, we are sparks of divinity. We are irreplaceable individuals or lenses through which life can speak and sing and dance. And if we are true to our nature, then something unique will emerge that has not seen the daylight before. And we should stay true to that. And in that respect, I would say, yes, mostly my books have become more flow books or transmission books, but it doesn't mean that I'm out of the picture. It means that I'm lovingly and engagingly giving my soul imprint on this because I'm part of life. It's very simple. I'm part of life. So this part of life and that part of life that you are, these parts are actually singing with words, actions, songs that are our contributions to the world, of course.
I resonate so much with what you're saying. I love it. And this is why every single writer's voice is important as well, right?
Yes.
Because we are unique and we have that unique blueprint, as you say. And there's something really good and healthy I can hear about this kind of really owning our light as well. So it's not like when
Yes.
I say channel, I also mean becoming a vessel in a way for,
Yeah.
but you're shaping the expression and right?
There you have it. You said it very clearly. You are shaping the expression. You are not an anonymous channel on behalf of others. I would say this would be to miss the point because you are meant to be coloring whatever comes through you. And if you're putting yourself aside, well, this is also a matter of how you look at spirituality. As I see it, more old-fashioned spirituality has the idea that you are not important, you should step aside and become only a channel, and the little you should be put away so the greater can talk through you, and you have to be silent so life can speak. Yes, but this is not the entire story because there is uniqueness and beauty in what we have to bring to the world. And this is actually what makes life so wonderful when we meet each other as human beings or beings. We experience something that has no copies. It's originals all the way through. So it is one of the most amazing facts of life that we are meant to be us, and in that reciprocity, so to speak, that sharing of being with each other, we make the world a greater place. When we
Amen.
diminish ourselves, we, excuse me, can I be here?
Yeah.
That's that's a misunderstanding.
Yes. Amen. Wow, I love it. And you embody that in a beautiful way, right? To really allow yourself to be original, be goofy if you want to, be all that you are, right?
Yeah, I love that goofy
I'm a bit
goofiness.
goofy too, so I like that. We don't need to squeeze any part of ourselves out in the
No, no,
shadows.
we don't.
No. So, Søren, let's just get a little meeting with your voice as a writer. I would love us to just hear you read something for us before we go on. Would you like to
Yes,
do that?
yes, yes, I would like to do that. So I've prepared a little, but you know that.
Yes.
Um, I would like to say that, so I don't miss it, that I've written 4 English books.
Mm.
And just to put it shortly, the first English book was called The Wild Alliance, and this is actually partly about the angel in you, but also the elven heart within you and the human heart within you. So this is making an alliance with your greater being, and as a human being, you are more than just ordinary human. This was followed by Untamed Breath, which is not a very well-known book for many people, but I did it in collaboration with the Danish artist Jeppe Hein, who made the art within the book. And it became a kind of preparation for. I just mentioned the third book as well, uh, Call of the Sea, which is uh, about the Irish poet A.E., also known as George William Russell. He's not a very well-known poet in Denmark, but in Ireland he's considered a big one. So this is about his poems and how they are channeling the elven nature or the elven human nature in beautiful ways. And in Ireland, this is definitely not wacko. It is part of the Irish culture.
Mhm.
But the last book, the fourth book, is Finding Your Elven Heart. And this was actually published by the Finhorn Press. And I really had time to mature something in this book, but I'll write a little excerpt from here. But to put it shortly, it is about the fact that our heart is not just human, it is also nature, if I put it like this. So if I say that in our core we are human and we are nature, and when we blend this, we get the she nature, as it is called in the Gaelic or Irish language. The she means the elven people or the hidden people. And whether you believe in the elves or not, it is a kind of opening into, shall I say, the nature within us, the undisturbed nature within the human heart. And in my book, I kind of symbolize this heart with 4 archetypes, um, 4 living aspects of our being. And the first is called the stone anchor. The second is called the flow dancer. The third is called the fire dreamer. And the fourth is called the wind singer. So in a way, it becomes the 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air. So earth is within us as the stone anchor, the standing stone within our being. The flow dancer is the ever moving, gentle, magical gentleness within us, the water element as a living part of our being. The fire dreamer is the igniting uh, opening to brightness and imagination. And the wind singer is that part of us that has to sing the song of life in the open air so everybody can participate in joint singing as part of the choir of life. But
Wow.
today I thought I would give a small excerpt from the beginning of The Fire Dreamer, which was about imagination. So
Yay.
it starts with a kind of an opening, and it sounds like this. The old experienced and sharp thought approached and addressed imagination with slightly suspicious eyes. Hey there, restless, strange nomad, why are you so colorfully dressed? Imagination looked back with a warm and gentle smile. Hi, friend, you look at the color of my skin. So this is the opening that the rational mind is approaching imagination. And then I continue. You can never figure it out. Life is overwhelmingly surprising. No matter how fast your mind works, it can never calculate all the factors in a given situation. If you try to analyze and intellectually understand the given angles in anything, you will arrive too late at the station and miss the train of life. You cannot anticipate unforeseen circumstances. The weather may change, a person may arrive late, you may catch the flu. You're in dire trouble if you invest all your energy in the smartness of the mind. Let me use another image. You own an entire house with several floors and many rooms. Living on one of the floors and in one of the rooms is an efficient calculator, a scrutinizing, thinking resident. This inhabitant is just one of many dwellers in the large house, yet all the other tenants seem to have handed over their keys, bank accounts, and passwords to this sole occupant, when they are in fact supposed to be a cooperative fellowship of the house. This position cannot show the way ahead. No matter how smart you try to be, you cannot sit in the ivory tower of your mind and figure things out from there. You will end up losing all the things you hold dear. So
Yay.
this is a way of approaching the mind and telling the mind, well, you can do a lot, but you are not the dictator of the human life.
Gosh, you just made my day. What a beautiful piece. I love it. Wow. And so relatable and oh, the humorous. I love the humor that is kind of a little um, side gaze here to the to the mind.
You can say that.
So wow. So and this is so delightful. I would love us to I would love you to walk us through your creative process. Like
Mm,
what is your process? What does it look like from spark to page? And I know that is a big question, but whatever you feel like sharing
yeah,
about that would be interesting.
thank you. Mm, my creative process um, begins with intention. And I'm reminded about the word um, intention. So intention means that something is like a string, like a guitar or violin string. It's very tense. So intention means something vibrates within me. And this intention is about something. So it begins with um, you could call it the germ of an idea. The intention is, this is important.
Mm.
I need to nurture this. So the beginning of the process is nurturing this small seed, carefully giving it water, but not trying to become too active too early. So I have a kind of initial patience, and I water this seed, and it starts growing. It starts to grow within me. And when I can see its leaves, its green leaves, and it's not just a hidden seed any longer, but it becomes visible, then I start loving what is emerging. And it sounds a little abstract, but I really mean it in this way. Um, and then I start noting, I start putting keywords to myself, and sometimes a kind of outline emerges uh, quite effortlessly, but usually the initial outline is not the final one, but it kind of shows the way to the next steps. And then I listen. I mean, listening to me is part of the process. I listen very carefully so I do not make my rational mind become too overactive too early. So, in the listening process, ideally, I make life speak without my interruptions. And again, it sounds very blah blah, as if it's perfect. It's not perfect, but it's a learning process. So listening makes something more emerge. And it is because I have the belief that many of these creations that books are an example of, in a way, some of it already exists in, you could say, other dimensions. It is maturing from within, and it's finding its way into outer expression. And it also feels like that. It feels like touching something that is already moving and has its own life. And then I feel I have to add to it, and I have to stay with it. And sometimes then I'm pausing and I'm doing other things because as a therapist and a teacher, I'm very busy. So usually I hear about writers who they take a writer's vacation for months and they sit and write, and I think, I can't afford that. I mean, if I should sit for months and write and then come back slowly with something as a beginning of a book, I would be ruined because I need to also make money. I need to work. So to me, it is sometimes an interrupted process. But then when I get at a tipping point and I feel this, the time is maturing now. I have to go into the next phase. And then I start writing, and usually it then becomes very swift actually. It moves from initial tentative approaches to like then I go into a kind of rush, not rush in having not traffic rush, but in a flow, you could say. And then I write very quickly. My process is compared to many people, I think I write strangely quickly, and I in the process I know there is a second tour. So sometimes I finish the process. It depends on the type of the book, but I finish quite quickly. And then I have to take another turn, and it is reading all through and also looking from a distance what is actually happening here. And then I have to have different perspectives on it. And then comes a lot of corrections, sometimes smaller corrections, but important, always important,
Mm.
and sometimes bigger corrections. And because I have trained structure for so many years, I have simply developed structure muscles. So
Mm.
I can, it's very easy for me to have an overview and see, oh, and then I can, and then, so it is like craftsmanship becoming art. Um, and it sounds so easy, but it is only because I have done it and have exercised and have worked very intensely with it for many years. Also writing a lot of articles, not just books, but a lot of articles and teaching materials, which is not books. So all this training um, brings me to a point where this is quite effortless, but structure is important. It's
Mm.
like the skeleton of something, and you have to honor the skeleton and not just the outer skin. And then I go into when it comes to the preparation for the creation of the book, I go into all the details, the cover, the and images
Mm.
often emerge very closely. And all my books, all the front covers, I've been participating without any. I mean, all 25, 6 books look like something I wanted them to look like. And then I go into the font, I go into paper quality, I go into illustrations within, and it's very important
Mhm.
because it is like, different fruits on the tree and nurturing it. I love it. I really love it because books need different fonts. Um, as an example, the William Heinesen book here, I clearly felt I needed a more traditional font because I should stay honoring this giant of the Faroese Islands who died in 1991. So I had to go back. So instead of using a more recent font, I have to mention it. We ended up using Palatino as a more traditional font, while the book before that, my beloved Soulflow book, The Art of Self-Healing, it had Calibri, which is a more contemporary font. So this is very different. Yes, printing.
It's it's super fascinating, and I feel like I found a kindred spirit here. That's really beautiful because everything matters, and it's all about the energy, and even the color of the cover, the title, all of it is an emanation of energy. So it all matters.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so funny that the way you describe your process is what I teach in my writing school. I have created a model that I call the magical writing wheel, and that is the process you just described. It's so
Wow.
yeah, it's really what I find so fascinating when you allow and trust the journey of creation and the listening first, the deep listening and not interfering, being in the feminine actually, and then allowing the structure and more masculine to come in, right? So
Exactly.
very, very relatable for me and my writers as well, who are also listening here. So
Exactly.
thank you for sharing that. And is there any more you want to add about how you connect with your soul source light in the process? You have kind of touched on it, but it could be you had something more you wanted to add. Do you meditate? Do
I,
you do something to kind of call
yes,
it in, or
I would say that there has been a great difference during the years because my earliest books up until and I have to give examples here just to
Mhm.
make you follow what I'm saying.
It's
Um,
lovely.
my books up to 200, 2010, they were more scholared books. So the scholar in me was very active as, you know, as a scholar, an academic scholar with philosophy and history of ideas as my, you know, university background. I never went into teaching at universities, but I took that education as a kind of training of my mind in the best possible way. So let me give you just two short examples of the past, which I honor and love. It is, first of all, the 800 pages big book called Living Wisdom, in Danish Levende Visdom. It, it took me 25 years to mature this book. And the writing process was enormous for me. And it is full of illustrations. And many of the illustrations I actually made myself to make this book also visually attractive within. And the other book is The Shakespeare Mystery, which is this one is from 2008, but it has been reprinted twice. This is from 2010, and I would consider this to be my last scholared book. I make the case for the fact that William Shakespeare was actually a synonym for a group of hidden writers behind that name, and the historical Will Shakespeare, as he was called, he was just lending his name to anonymous but very important writers of the English noble community who was not allowed to do that in public. So my case is that Francis Bacon, Sir Francis Bacon, was the head, the major force behind the playwrights of William Shakespeare, actually. So I had to use all my scholar skills to make this case, and I went to the British Library in London and looked into ancient books. Got, uh, you know, I it was a kind of test to really make the utmost effort. This is a case you have to look at seriously. And this is the scholar speaking. But then came the shift to the poet or the poetic. To me, the guiding star is the spirit of joyful poetry.
Mm.
So there has to be a poetic element in my voice today because it is the best way I can inspire people to go beyond words. There is a reality, a huge reality beyond words, but words are pointers. They are kind of, look there. So if we use the words, then they can point at a greater reality and we can discover something very important. So the poetic nature is the magical ingredients I lean into when I write today. And when I write a book about soul flow therapy, it is, it's a textbook in a way, but it is written so you're not bored. It is written as a living testimony of something. So the poetic element is in it, you could say. And
Mm.
this goes for many of my books, my recent books, and I say many of my recent books, it sounds
Yes.
a little funny, but let me just shortly mention that these three books, Vildhjerte, Wild Heart, Vildhjerte Portalen, The Wild Heart Portal, and Vildhjerte Vejen, The Wild Heart Path, these three books were written in the Faroe Islands, and this took a week, this took a week, and this took a week. This was a week in 2021. This was a week in 2002. And this was a week in 2003. And what I took with me from Denmark was seeds, poetic seeds. And then I let them out when I sat in William Heinesen's wonderful house on the first floor where writers can stay, and I had a week because I could afford that. So then it takes off, and it is poetically ignited, you could say.
Oh, I would love to read them all, you know. So, and this is super rich. Thank you for walking us through all of this journey. And just, I want to say for the listeners who cannot see this, because it's also on Apple Podcast and Spotify, uh, the Living Wisdom book that Søren spoke of in the beginning here, it's a Bible. We talking what, 800 pages, something like that? It's
800
yeah,
pages.
it's thick. And you know, so that journey from the scholar to the more poetic writer and flow writing is very interesting. And I also love that you honor both parts of the journey, because it is all a big contribution and different
Yeah.
ways you've been using your mind and your heart and your soul to channel and write something. So wow. And what a hope it gives other writers that you can write a book in a week, right? If you are inspired and you are in the right spot. I want to go to the Faroe Islands now.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So
Yes.
good. So good. So, Søren, I'm curious. Have you met any challenges as a writer? Can you take us a little in here?
Yes, I have, but I think compared to many, I have this effortlessness, and it is not laziness, because that would not be a very good book if I took it that way. I my challenges has been sometimes, and more earlier than today, that I wanted to write something, but I was unsure if any was interested in it.
Mm,
Um, and in a way, also struggling with structure was a very steep learning process, because it is demanding. So to come from the basics and to learn to be at ease with structure, that was the most challenging process for me. And then the transition from being an ambassador on behalf of others
mm.
to become an agent of myself. And this change was, I've described it partly.
I
So
hear you.
I
Yeah,
would say that,
yeah, that makes
really.
sense. Yeah. And often, isn't it so that the everything is intertwined? So the spiritual
Yes,
journey, the personal journey is intertwined with the writing. It kind of, you can't split that. Um,
absolutely.
so wow, I'm curious. Maybe this is a weird question, Sam, but who or what has been your muse over the years? And has your muse changed?
I think I've already said it in a way, because
Mhm.
the scholared archetype transformed into the lyrical archetype. So I could also use the word lyrical as another word for the poetic muse. So I would say ultimately, nature is my muse. And it sounds a little bit like a smart phrase to put it, but nature is incredibly important to me, and I always walk a lot. Now I live here at Ådalen Kursus Center in Ejby Ådal at the edge of Isefjord in Zealand, Denmark. And when I just walk 3 minutes, I stand on the edge of what we would call in Denmark some of the high cliffs of 30 meters down, and then I can look out on the fjord, and breathing and walking in the surroundings of the fjord and Ibodal is a continuing inspiration for me. And it's like a love affair. It's like, and just before we started, I took a small walk, the 3 minutes down to the edge, and I passed a small squirrel in the trees above me, and I talked to it and made word and sounds to it, and it stopped and looked down at me, and this is to me the magic of life, to encounter that all life is living, and I'm in dialogue, I'm in exchange with life. So ultimately, I would say that nature is my muse.
Mm, beautiful.
And
Yeah.
it sounds a little simple, but couldn't you be more specific? Okay, Mother Nature, Gaia, the earth is my muse.
It's lovely. I love it. So um, I would love to hear, because many here who are listening are writers or aspiring writers.
Yes.
And what would you say is the most important thing to know if you feel called to, as you say, live a writer's life? What would be your perspective or advice, maybe?
Mm, I would say that um, it it requires skill and prolonged practice. So one should not be discouraged by many futile efforts. If you think that writing can come by just sitting and looking good with a pencil in your hand, it, that would be a misunderstanding. I would say that it has to be a love affair. You have to write because you can't stop it. If you look for success, I have to say, bestsellers are not the goal. If I should look at my 26 books, have I had any bestsellers in the ordinary sense of the word? No, not really. Yes, but some of your books have, for instance, The Angel in You. Yes, it sold 6,000 copies. Is that a bestseller? Well, I don't think so. So what's the point? If I went for bestsellers, I would have stopped 34 years back because it's not, to me, the case. It has to be something that is so dear to you that it has to be nurtured. And I would really advise any writer in the becoming to be patient. Be patient and gentle with yourself and engage with it as a loving learning journey. And especially when you see mistakes that you make, or things that didn't work, take it as wonderful opportunities to become more clear in what you really, I mean, it is, you know, the word sin, as in sinful, it's a very bad word, eh? But in reality, to sin is to miss. Like when you are uh, sending an arrow towards a goal, when you miss that goal, you are actually sinning. That is what the word sin
Mm,
means.
mm,
So sin is not a bad thing. It is a condition for hitting the bullseye. So we have to make mistakes in order to learn how things are spot on. So instead of punishing ourselves with all the things that doesn't work, we should appreciate when we discover that
mm.
something was missing, really. And
This
and
is so, yeah. Sorry.
no, I mean it's a big thing because sometimes we get hard with ourselves because I have this impulse and I should be able to do it so people can see it. I've had people coming to me with manuscripts, many hundreds of pages, and telling me, I just know this manuscript. It is the wonder of the world. Would you please read it and give me your approval that this is a fantastic manuscript? And I have to say to people, first of all, when you think you have written the most fantastic book in the world, I'm not the one who should convince you. You should at ease be convinced yourself, and you should probably consider making that manuscript a little smaller, because sometimes writers, they think that, you know, how big it is sometimes it's very big, yes, but it's very important. I would say if you can minimalize something and write in shortness, you should do it. And with a 100 800 pages book behind me, I should not be the first to say that. But yes,
Yes.
writing books like this today, you know, 140 pages. I know
Mm.
about short writing as well, so
Less is more sometimes. Yeah,
less
totally.
is more.
Yeah.
And learning about your writing community, I would say that is wonderful to have people come to you and be inspired in the writing process, and you have a lot of good tricks and learning processes and insights, and then to try it. And I've also heard about people who had blockages in writing but wanted to write, and there are people offering, help here, and it's such a joy when things start to flow and people
Exactly.
discover that.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, and I look at many manuscripts because that's part of what I'm doing. We talk about you sit with clients often, and I sit with writers and look at that manuscripts, and that's exactly the process, right? So
Yeah.
there was something you said in this sharing that I just really want to just sit with for a moment. Let it be a love affair.
Yes,
If anyone here can take that with you, you know that is so profound, and I really believe that is such a sound advice to do it for the right reasons. And then in divine timing, if it's meant to be, it will be a bestseller, maybe, but that joy of creation must drive us, right? So awesome. I love that
exactly.
advice. Søren, I'm curious, what would you say? And this is maybe a bit philosophical, but you can do that. What is the power of word for you? What does the power of the word mean?
Mhm.
Or what is the power of words, maybe?
Yeah, I get it fully.
Mm-hmm.
It is, to me, it is the first step of manifestation from no words to words. It is like the story of creation itself. It is like out of a nothingness full of possibilities, the first forms emerge. And it's like the beginning of St. John's um, gospel. In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning was the word, really. In the beginning was the vibration that came out of the void of possibility. And the word is the vibration that takes form. So the power of the word to me is tremendous. I have a good example, not just about the power of word, but also the power of images which are connected to words.
Mm-hmm.
As I was very young, a young boy, I heard from another boy that you should never drink what we in Danish call let milk, light milk. It's a
Yeah.
specific form of milk, because this person said, you can become blind if you drink lead milk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a joke.
Hmm.
but it actually had the effect that I unconsciously avoided lead milk for 40 years. And I didn't even realize it until I suddenly stood, at a supermarket and I looked at that lead milk and I thought, well, that kind of mint blue color it has on its cartoon or on its, its form, it reminds me it has always had that kind of color. Well, why am I never choosing lead milk? Well, blindness. And I had to Google blindness and lead milk to check if there was something about it. And, and then I stood there looking like a fool. There's nothing about blindness and lead milk. And then for the first time in 40 years, I actually bought, for the first time in my life, I bought a light milk. And I thought, that's interesting. But just think about that. You have been conditioned by a, a word designating a specific kind of milk that you have heard from another just saying that sentence. That it's incredible. And it was very, it was not a dangerous thing. It was a kind of joke. But this is what the power of the word really is. And this was not something deeply traumatic. It was just an unconscious control. So if we can bind with the words, we can also help transforming and releasing with the words.
Yes.
I think
Gosh,
that's
this is so good. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. Wow. Sometimes I just feel like stopping and meditating, but we don't have time for that. This is so good. So,
well,
so there's something else. Maybe you want to just elaborate a little bit more on that because I wanted to ask you also about how you use archetypes and symbols. But you said a little bit about that now with the images. Um, but maybe we could say storytelling or something. How does that? How do you see that enhancing your writing?
storytelling. What do you mean when you say how storytelling enhances my writing?
Yes, or like, what is the significance of storytelling? What does storytelling do in a book, for example?
To me, storytelling makes something specific universal,
Mm.
which means if storytelling has to make any sense, it has to resonate within me as something. It doesn't need to be my story, but in another person's or another circumstance's story, there is something that life speaks to me. So storytelling to me is when something becomes universal, when it becomes something that's relevant for me with my dialect. So it is recognizing humanity and life in all its circumstances. So when I'm engaged, for instance, when I wrote your book years back in Danish, I simply recognized um, something universal in your path, and it resonated with aspects that I had felt myself, but in a different way. So, in that way, your life storytelling
Mm.
became a kind of footprint of this is how humanity finds its way to something greater. Does that make sense?
Totally, yes. It's like that mirror of the hero's journey or something.
Yeah, yeah,
It makes
exactly.
us connect, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I totally get you. Yeah, and you do that so beautifully. And I also want to hear because there's something I always kind of noticed when reading your books, and that is the way you use the Danish language or your mother tongue. Um, and let me say, it's like there's something about maybe it's the lyrical way, the poetic way, but you also tend to use words that we don't see every day. You know, you have a rich, nuanced, layered language. Uh, what is the secret to that?
Well, it's a good question, and I think I may be born with an acute sense of language. I have to say that. From my early childhood, I was asking my parents a lot about things in life. I can even remember myself as a small child asking about big questions. Um, so, and asking was important. And then I'm not sure where it comes from specifically, but because of my born sense with language, I think I pick up when I think language is used in a too ordinary way, because I think it is a vehicle for much more. And I think, well, then is it possible to find many words for this and play with it? So, yes, people sometimes say to me that they find it very inspiring. I have, by the way, to say, sometimes people say, "Oh, yes, you have so easy with words. Yes, yes, you have so easy." And I'm a little bit, vulnerable here, because sometimes voices in me react and say, "Okay, do you think that I just find it smart to use words and be very clever with words?" If that is the case, I think you misunderstand me, because to me, it is the deep respect of the richness of language. And I actually, I'm only doing two languages, Danish and English. And it's quite deliberate, because I've used a lot of energy to be good in English, but it has been it has been, I've not become very good in German. I'm very bad in German, and I can mirror Norwegian and Swedish and so on, and easily understand, but I'm very bad at it if I try, because it sounds funny. But it comes from the love of the Danish soil, the Danish mother language, and it has opened up to a similar love of the English language. So I have a vision of sometimes learning Spanish, but I think for now I love to be good at English because I can reach many people, but it comes from the love of Danish. And I sometimes say to people, if you are very attentive, Danish and English are very closely related, but sometimes people don't see it because it sounds different, but it's very similar if you look into it in many, many ways. And yeah, I don't know, it's a love affair, Eva. I can't say more.
It, it's all about love. Yes.
It sounds a little naive when you say it like
No,
that,
no,
but
no, no. I
I
totally
actually
get.
mean it.
I hear you. Yeah, yeah, but it really is, and it's an honoring actually of
It is.
how I see that in the way you, uh, and also about being precise. Is there an even more precise way, right? And then
Yes.
so that's why you seek the most nuanced word that hits totally the tone of what you want to say, right? Um,
Yeah, you could say that. And because it means so much to me, I'm also able to, and it sounds a little preposterous to say this, but I am able to start a sentence and then I can see different avenues the sentence can end up, and I can choose, oh, I'll take that one. And then, oh, there's two over there, so I can differentiate. And if I just started the sentence with a word, I will not end it with the same word. I will avoid the same word, but find perhaps another word for that word so it becomes more musical.
yeah, more musical. Yes, that's so good. Ah, this is like a masterclass for writers. So we will soon start talking a little more about your new book, but I wanted to hear, looking back,
Yeah.
what do you wish someone had told you at the beginning of your writing journey?
And this is a very interesting question because I don't know.
Oh,
Because I really have felt guidance, inner guidance all the way. I feel inner confidence all the way. And okay, I got very big support when I was in school. I just forgot that. I have to mention that. That was very important. I was so much supported by the Danish teacher in my first years in school. She was so supportive. She saw my love of writing and drawing as well. And she ended up making me um, tell the stories of my when we had, made small writing exercises. I should tell them aloud to the to the rest of the class, and I felt so supported. So, because of this support from a Danish teacher in early school, I had the confidence from the beginning that this was just like breathing. And then I wonder, I can't figure it out. How would it have been if I had if I had met a lot of opposition in school? I don't know. My journey is just that I was supported very early and admired and I wrote very, very long text
essays.
in Danish.
Yeah.
Essays, yes. The longest was 50 pages. And I just did it because I couldn't help it.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah.
So I
It
can't
seems
tell
like,
you.
yeah.
I can't tell you because I was supported from the beginning, so
Mm,
I have never missed anything.
mm. I love that. And it also just underlines how significant it is to be supported as a child and to be seen, right?
You are so
Um,
true. You are so
yeah.
true.
And I'm happy that you had that experience. And I'm like, your teacher must have had a lot of fun with you.
Yes, but she was a huge support. Many years later, I went back to her and thanked her for her
Mm,
because I felt, whoa, I have to honor what I was actually standing upon. A Danish teacher full of support in my early days, and I never take things for that for granted, really.
mm. Beautiful.
I'm very thankful for that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Søren,
Yeah.
now you are sitting here with your amazing new book. And what inspired that book? And how did that seed begin? And can you take us a little into that journey? And congratulations again.
And here we have it, yes,
Yes, yes.
the star maker, William Heinesen. It is a long story, and I have to make it very short because otherwise it is too much prolonged.
Mm,
When I was a teenager, I saw a television program about William Heinesen, and I was 17, I think, and I was struck by that old wise man and the way he was pronouncing things in the Faroese way of talking Danish
mm,
inspired me, and it just made an impression that never left me. And it took me many years before I actually read any of his books. But when I came to read his books, I could kind of hear his voice within me, as if he was reading the books aloud. Yes, reading the books aloud, and it it's a very long story. But in 2013, I met a wonderful lady called Else Lidegaard. She's 92 now, but she's very sharp and still bright here in this world. She I engaged a friendship with her, and she had known William Heinesen personally for his last 20 years very deeply. He was perhaps his most close confidant you can imagine. Um, and this opened up to my love for the Faroe Islands. So in 2015, I took with her and a lot of other people to the Faroe Islands. And I've been there many times since. And I deeply love the Faroe Islands, their nature, the poetic voice of the islands. And I would say that the Faroese mountains are like music to me, with all the water running down, and the greenness. And I've never seen grass as green as on the Faroe Islands. And then I also learned to know his one of his sons, Zacharias Heinesen, and it is actually Zacharias Heinesen who has made this painting from one of the islands on the Faroe Islands. And that house, I've been sleeping in that house, that very
Wow.
house there. It's from the island of Mykines, which is the most western island of the 18 islands of the Faroe Islands. Um, and this just um, started to mature within me, and I wrote all of his books, and I loved them so deeply, and I felt, whoa, I would so much love to write a book about him someday, but this is daunting because it is just like writing a book about Hans Christian Andersen. Who hasn't written a book about him? I mean, you are up against the cultural elite, and you have to. How dare you do that? I mean, this has been, a kind of, I have to do it. And finally, I had the courage to go into it. And when I started reading, it repeated itself. I wrote this book within a few months. But during these months, my home here, my fiancée Hannah and I, we were living in a mess because I had all his books over the floor, and quotes and everything, because this book had to be a kind of mixture between a scholar book and a lyrical book,
Mhm.
because it is about a person who lived on the Faroe Islands and became 91 years and make a huge footprint. To me, he is like, he is in the level at the level of Dostoevsky or Karen Blixen or the greatest authors, Charles Dickens, whatever. But he wrote in Danish, and that makes it accessible not just for the Faroese people, but for Denmark. And he has been a little forgotten.
Mm.
I talk about many people, and they don't know who William Heinesen is, and now it is his 125th jubilee. I mean, it's this year it is 125 years since he was born, and I'm very happy to have that small logo. It is also on, and here you have a picture of him, and this is the 125th logo. And I got such a support from Williamshus, which is the foundation, and also his house that is a museum, and his son Zacharias, who is 88 today and a very accomplished painter. He and his daughter has supported me tremendously by helping with getting permissions to use many of his wonderful images, because William Heinesen was not just an author, he was a very, very specific and wonderful. Um, uh, he was making images. This is actually paper art he
Wow.
was using with a scissor, and other things was oil paintings, and a lot of things. And I bring all these, and he had a lot of humor.
Yeah.
He made people in caricature, and he's absolutely astonishing, and he had a tremendous connection to nature. So
Mm.
all this, his ability to write 7 novels, and the most famous of the 7 novels is, it is called, in English, The Lost Musicians, in Danish, uh, now I'm just missing the point. De fortabte spillemænd in Danish. I
Oh,
almost forgot the Danish title.
yeah.
Fantastic
Mm.
story, and if anyone are interested in his novels, Tårnet ved verdens ende, The Tower at the Edge of the World, is not a big one, and he wrote, it's the last of his 7 novels, and I would recommend that. It has the magic of childhood and old age at the same time. So mm, my hope is that I can reach many readers. He was also very spiritual in his own very unorthodox way. So if I can reach people with spirituality alive, and I can also reach people who are more into the traditional novel writers and big writers, that is my hope. And to promote William Heinesen and make people rediscover this gentle giant of the North, the North Atlantic islands called the Faroe Islands, that would be the greatest honor for me. So I really appreciate this. It's so dear to me, this book, and it will be issued on the 11th of April, and it will be people can buy it on saxo.com and the Danish book portals, of course. It will be available everywhere using that. And I hope many bookstores in Denmark will take it as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it sounds like this book is very uh, expensive in a way. There's something very expensive about it. It feels so profound. I love to feel your passion for it, and thank you for sharing the whole journey of how it kind of came into being. And it's really I can really feel the significance of this book. So wow, and I love it that it has this kind of it almost seems like a bridge into spirituality for those who are curious about it, but maybe not for everyone. But it's like it meets people where they are, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. I should add that he had so much humor,
Yeah,
and when he portrayed people in his novels, he could portray the most awful human beings with love.
yeah,
And that's a very rare thing, because he never, uh, make people uh, ugly, only ugly, but you can also feel pity and compassion with the ugly people. He was very much up against capitalism and religious fanaticism, but he never demonized any people, and that softness of the heart and that great humor that I really think he had, and you can get a sense of his humor while looking at him smiling here as an elderly man, and he is a gem. He is an absolute gem. So I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone with this book, because I'm, treading into the ordinary world with something that has to be evaluated. But
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I had to do it.
I love it, and it takes a bit of courage always when we do something that is a little bit out of the comfort zone, but I'm sure it will be received very, very well, knowing your writing and your skill also. And
Hope so.
oh yeah, I'm sure anyone who can read Danish who's listening to this, go get this book, right, and let it inspire you and uplift you and take in the magic of this beautiful writer. Yeah,
It will also be possible to buy it on our own printing, our own publisher company called wiseheart.dk. So if you go into wiseheart.dk, it can be bought directly there, and it will be the signed copies, because out
Mm.
in the bookstores it'll just be copies. So
Uh-huh.
that's the
I'll
best
put a
way.
link. I'll put a link under the podcast for that, so
Fantastic.
our listeners can go and get it right away. And it's also a beautiful gift to give to someone, right? So it's like a really
Yes.
perfect gift for, isn't it, the Mother's Day, Father's Day, all these things.
Yes,
Yeah. So, or for your
absolutely.
summer read, right? Um, so, what is your kind of a dream for this book? You have maybe said a little bit about it, but like your wildest dream for this book.
My wildest dream is that it will help people discover the Faroe Islands and visit the islands with respect as tourists, not just as consuming tourists, wandering, meandering around in the Faroese landscape and destroying its beauty, but honoring the Faroese nature and culture, because the wonder of the Faroese people is that we are only talking about about 50,000 people on the islands, and in total there are perhaps 80,000 people talking the Faroese language. So it's a very tiny people with a huge gift to the world, because their islands are so beautiful, and people are starting to discover the Faroe Islands. And I don't hope that it will create a mess on the Faroe Islands, because its nature cannot take it. You have to be very respectful, because it is right there in front of you. You don't need to take, a long journey to get out into the mountains and sit on a cliff and look out on the ocean. It's right there all the
Mm.
time, because
Wow.
they are so tiny. So
I so
the
want to
biggest
go. I so want to go there one day. It really sounds like a pearl of an experience. And but of
it
course the reverence for the nature that is so important. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And then William Heinesen's home, Williamshus, is a museum run by the William Heinesen Trust, and Zacharias and his daughter Elisa, and one of my other friends, Bergur, who is also a Faroese, the most astonishing William Heinesen scholar I have ever met. They are in front of this trust, and they have a vision
Mm.
for a visiting center close to Williamshus, a huge visitor center with all the adventure and magic of his novels, which is full of trolls and strange creatures and human beings and nature in one big mess in the best possible way. So that is my biggest dream.
Ah, wow, intriguing. And who knows, maybe your book will also be in English one day. This one, I could imagine.
Could be,
Could
could
be,
be, perhaps.
perhaps. Everything is possible. So,
Yeah,
Søren, I gotta ask you, not to overwhelm you, but even after now 26 books, do you still feel there are more books in you? Will you ever stop writing?
and he nodded with a smile. I I already have at least two more in the making, but
Oh.
but their time is not ripe yet.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I will definitely write more about something related to soul flow therapy, because it is such a deep way of learning to become more whole within yourself. And all the experiences I get with my clients continually burst with new dimensions. So I've written two books about soul flow, and the most recent one that came last year is dear to me. But I definitely feel that there is a sequel to that, a kind of independent sequel to that. And I also experience that William Heinesen, it's not over.
Mm.
I would love to make another. This has a biographical nature as well, but I would love to take a journey into some of his small novels and exemplify how they re-enchant the world, how they open up to the magical dimension of the world, and how he does it. The whimsiness and the inventive ways he turns things around and opens up to life as a wonder. But if you ask me in 5 years, Eva,
We'll be back on the podcast.
there will be more. I tell you.
I feel that, and thank you. Keep writing. I want to read that book about the way he writes. That seems very intriguing to me as well, and also the Soul Flow book. So we are almost wrapping up here for this
Yeah.
amazing conversation. Even if I feel like I could have been sitting here all day talking to you, because this is so rich and has been so fascinating and so giving. But I wanted to hear. I have like 3 weird questions for you. If we haven't been weird enough. Um, do you have a favorite word, Søren? One that lights you up?
Joy.
Yes.
This is the most easy answer. I mean, joy lights up the world, and being sad is not something that should be avoided, because in the depth of sadness lies more richness to joy. So if we try to avoid sadness and being heavy and not where we want to be, if we avoid that, the joy will not be released in its full potential. It will become a kind of superficial joy as an escape from sadness. So I want to put that very clearly. And actually, that is what William Heinesen portrays in his novels, The Lost Musicians. It is joy and sadness are not, black and white. They are dancing like yin and yang in a way. But I would say that joy is my cherished word. I seek that. I I use it as a compass needle in my own life. What brings me joy?
I have to show you something, Søren. On my arm, I have tattooed the word
Bliss.
bliss, because
Yes.
it's also a compass for me. So I get you. Thank you. I just had to say,
Fantastic.
follow your bliss,
Here
right?
you have my arm. It's full of nothing.
Yes, but your whole being is full of joy. You embody
Yeah,
your
I get it.
joy.
And thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I want to hear, is there a book that has changed you or never left you?
Yes, I'm ready, and here it is. David Spangler, his whole authorship, but I would recommend Journey into Fire. It is a small one, so you are not lost in it. Journey into Fire. David Spangler has had the most profound. He's an 80-year-old wise man, and he lives in close to Seattle in USA, and he has been part of the Finhorn community's development in northern Scotland, and he has written more than 50 books. And the spiritual common sense and magical ordinarity in his books has been a game changer in my life, because when I met his writing, I felt for the first time in my life, this is a kindred spirit that stands so close to me, and I feel I must connect with him. So I did that in 2007, and we've been dear friends, and I have to visit him again with Hannah this autumn in US, and to participate. He's living his teaching, and he does it so beautifully. So Journey into Fire, that's the book.
Oh, fantastic. I feel like I have a whole list of books I want to read now. Thank you for the inspiration. And I know he was also part of the inspiration for the Soul Flow, I guess, at the beginning, right?
No, not directly, but
Mm.
the soul flow therapy, the elements in the therapy can be found in his spiritual teaching, but not as a therapy with him, but just as an approach to life. But it
Yeah,
is
right.
actually, he
Yeah.
didn't inspire it, but
No.
it matches.
It aligns. Yes, I
Yes, it
see.
aligns.
Yes. Wow. So, Søren, who and what is inspiring you the most in this chapter of your life? Is what inspires you the most?
Now I would like to end up with an unusual um, answer.
Yeah.
My fiancée, Hannah.
Yeah.
And I'm not just being romantic right now. I'm really being honest and saying that we've been together for almost 5 years, and we're getting married this year.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing. She is an astonishing inspiration. Um, she works as a leader consultant, so she does spiritual work in companies with leaders that corresponds to what I do in my flow work with individuals, with single persons. And we share spirituality, and we are such a good match. But we're also very different. Sometimes we play with the images that she is the snail and I'm the grasshopper. So she's very gentle, she's very bright, and she's sometimes more slow than I am, but it's because of a profound depth and uh, connecting and exchanging is an ever-growing inspiration. So I just want to honor the intimate partnership with another human being and saying, this is a gift for me, and I feel extremely lucky and thankful for that because it cannot be taken for granted. And there are so many people struggling with being single and, having wounds from earlier relationships. And so I want to emphasize her, and I'm not trying to charm her because she can live with it without me saying this, but this is actually, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel that sincerity in that, and it is what a blessing! What a blessing that you found each other. I love
Yeah.
that. Then I'm so grateful to you for this conversation, for taking us along in your big and beautiful life as a writer and a teacher, and for sharing so generously from your journey. And it's like I feel like uh, I just want to sit with a cup of tea and just land after this conversation because I feel so filled up with inspiration. And it's I knew it would be something special, but this has blown my mind and my heart, and I am just so grateful for you, for your sacred work, for your willingness to also be in this evolution as a writer and keep renewing and reinventing yourself as you've done. It's a beautiful inspiration for all of us. And thank you, thank you, thank you. And so many blessings to your new book as well. I know it will travel far and wide. Uh,
So, Eva, let me put it the other way around. I'm very grateful for you asking me into my authorship in this way. So I feel rich and enriched by your eager and sincere interest in this, because actually it's the first in my 42 years of an independent spiritual teacher and therapist and whatever, and an author, that anyone asked me seriously into this. So thank you for doing that.
it was on time. And thank you for receiving the invitation, Søren. So much love to you, and so much love to everyone who has been listening and been staying with us here till the end. And I'll ask you, if you liked this episode, if you found it insightful, helpful, inspiring, give it a like, share with us in the comments, and we will read it and enjoy it. And see you next time. So much love. Thank you so much for being here with us. And if you want to have a meeting with your divine muse, go to my page
www.eva-andrea.com for a guided writing meditation loved by thousands over the years. Thank you for listening, everyone. Share this episode with your friends and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. So much love.